Hey everybody, well it is that time of year. Holiday season has arrived, Thanksgiving on the horizon, Christmas not too far away, and time for another episode for us here. So thanks for being with us. Alongside Penn's head coach Dan Muse, I am Josh Getzoff. Coach, always appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's been, I would say, a pretty quiet game-wise last couple of weeks here for the Penguins, but the games themselves have brought about some storylines. I wanted to kind of dive right into it with you because this past weekend, obviously, you had some comments after the game that were understandable given the team's performance in the two games and the results that went against them in both contests. Just kind of take us through the process of going through these two games, what you kind of have dissected from it, and your overall thoughts here from the return from Sweden back-to-back over the past weekend.
Yeah. I think, if you go off of those two games, there were two very different games for us, and at the end of it, it resulted in 1 point out of 4, which, I think that we have a standard that's been built in, and by built into, I think that's from the players, I think we come into the season and, you're always you want to set a foundation and you want to set, we want to decide kind of what that standard is going to be. We want to be writing our own story, and I think that it is a credit to the players that the standards and now the expectations that I think that we have for ourselves within the locker room, within the group, are at a high level, and they're definitely, I think, higher than maybe a lot of people on the outside were giving us credit for to start the year, and so that's. Having that internally and feeling that way and feeling like 1 out of 4 points is not good enough. I think it's also because that's based on what we've seen from this group and a belief in this group too that we can play. I think when we're playing the way that we want to play, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter if it's a back-to-back. Like those things don't matter. But we need to be doing it on a consistent basis. And, I think you go off of especially that the game against Minnesota was far below the standard, that we've set and the level that the players have played at on numerous occasions. And if you even go through this past month, there's been some games where I've really liked our game and, we didn't come out there with the 2 points. But you also get to a point where, you can't just say, it's a good try or a point is good enough. And we need to find a way to take that next step.
No one gets you ready for puck drop like Penguins Face Off Live. Pre-game insights, analysis, and a word straight from the coach. Penguins Face Off Live before every game on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Well, we mentioned there being a little bit of a gap between the game Saturday, Sunday, and the next game here on Wednesday, and in between that, a couple practice days and some roster moves, and perhaps the most notable of all is the guy that's coming up here to Pittsburgh is Tristan Broz. And I know you and I discussed it. I talked with the show on Kyle Dubas about it as well, about the performance that he had in training camp and making it a really difficult decision for you guys to send him to Wilkes-Barre. He started down there, he performed down there, and now he's up here. How are you feeling about this guy getting his opportunity to make his NHL debut?
I'm really excited for him. It's. I remember going back because it was a tough decision, in training camp, and he pushed, he made things very difficult, which is a big credit to him, and I think he really did. He earned a really good impression. So as for a young player, you're walking out of a training camp, and I'm sure he's disappointed, and but at the same time, I remember at that time thinking, he might not realize it now, but like he's done a lot of good, in terms of making that impression and, going right to the end of training camp. And I also remember thinking to myself that, this is going to be a guy I'd be pretty surprised if we're not seeing him here at some point. That injuries happen during the course of the year, and guys in and the American League are also going to be, they're also just push, and they're going to do things, and they're going to be doing everything they possibly can here to try to get that recall and get that opportunity. And just really felt like he's going to be a guy that at some point we see it, and also remember thinking too, like if and when that day comes, I'll be pretty excited about it because he showed a lot, and so. I think it's a credit to him too. It's never an easy thing. I think especially when you get right to the end, right there, and it's close, and then you end up going down to the American League and going to Wilkes. Like, that's a tough thing, and so it's a credit to him that he's able to, really start to establish his game and having a really good year there, and helping the team, who's having an outstanding season, get wins. And so now it's always, I think, when guys have kind of earned that opportunity, you're excited for them, but especially guy getting his first game like this, it's really cool and well deserved.
A couple guys that are going to go down to Wilkes-Barre Scranton forwards. One of them more recent, later in the week, is Sam Poulin, announced Tuesday afternoon. The other, Phil Tomasino, was part of the roster move with Broz coming up here to Pittsburgh. Two different types of players, different scenarios, but I'm wondering if you could just kind of walk us through, I guess more so Tomasino and the process of him so far, and then Poulin, I'm assuming, is just roster related.
Yeah. No, it's they're never easy decisions. With Tomasino, who's been here since the start, going down, but it's I think there's also something that needs to be looked at too, of when you've gone stretches of time where maybe it's in and out, or you've been out for a long time. And now there is that opportunity to go down, and we've seen it now. The benefits of it with some other players. You've seen it with Heinen, you've seen it with Graves, and like guys have obviously those were tough situations. Those guys have been playing in the league for a long time. They made the most of it, and then when that opportunity did come up for them to come back, they were in a different place, just because of the amount of time, the amount of game action that they're getting at that level is going to be different than it is here. It's just, I think it can be an opportunity for guys to maybe reestablish their game a little bit, and we've seen it happen. I think that's always the hope with somebody, especially somebody who's been in the league. Whether it's been a long time or a little time, but it's not something that they want when it happens. But I think it is something that if they treat it the right way and take advantage of it, there could be positive benefits for them long term. And so I think that's the hope of Tomasino.
Yeah, and obviously Sam goes down as well, and we mentioned that being more roster related. But the other big one was Harrison Brunicke going down there, and we've all been following this. I know you've talked ad nauseum about it. So has Kyle Dubas on this show, and just to the media in general about the process. And these guys, both him and Kindle, have gone through different types of processes, being up here at the NHL level for the first time. But after the scratches, I think it was now 6 games in a row, he'll go down for this conditioning stint. It's either 14 days or 5 games, whichever comes first. What are you looking for him down there, aside from the obvious with game action? I mean, what are you expecting him to gain out of that overall?
Well, the game action's a big part of it, but you've also seen, like, in those games where he wasn't playing, like there was a lot of work that was going on, designed specifically for him. And so there's work that's going on in the weight room, in terms of, he's a young guy, so being able to just work on building up some strength, which is, it's hard to do. It's borderline. I think it can be close to impossible with an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, even sometimes 20-year-old, like younger players, if the time's not allotted for them to have that. And so with both, Bruno and Kindle, like, we've had those times where they've come out. Now, Brunicke, it's been a lot longer, and so there's other things too that were in play that we were working on, and all designed for him. And so I think it's taking some of those areas now and applying them, in the American League in Wilkes. And I think it's an opportunity to take some of the things that he learned while he was here, which I think there was a lot between training camp and the games that he played, right, the practices that he's had. All the individual work on the ice, like there's, take those and now apply them. Right. And so, he's going to get that in game action now. And, I think it's going to be, he's been great through, everything. It's never easy, whether you're an older player or a younger player, it doesn't matter. It's like, these guys want to play games. They want to be out there. And so, when you've gone a little bit of a stretch without playing, like, this is all kind of, things have been built up now for him to get this chance to go to Wilkes and get those games. And I'm excited for him. I'm excited to watch and excited to see kind of just the steps that can be taken by him down there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Wilkes-Barre's off to a great start, so he'll be a part of the more recent games coming their way over the next 14 days, 5 games, whichever comes first. That's the next step in the development plan for Harrison Brunicke. Next step for us is taking a break. We'll be back after this. Stay with us.
The road to puck drop begins on Penguins Tonight. a first look at the latest game news, stories from around the league, and so much more. Penguins Tonight, 1 hour before every game on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by Morgan & Morgan.
Welcome back. Well, Coach, you obviously have a defined role with this team. The head coach of the Penguins, try to get them to be the best they can be every night and get them to where we all want them to be, when the games are done and the season's finished. But as you look at the past stops in your career, you've had some developmental roles. You've brought guys along in those developmental roles. You kind of have a unique situation here where, Broz is going to be the 9th rookie to step into your lineup this year. That's the most in the NHL. You're also coaching a team that's very much in the mix as far as fighting for playoff positioning and has had a great start to the year. How have you kind of blended that background of development with this opportunity to be a head coach for the first time in this league and kind of synced it all together here over the last 2 months, essentially?
Yeah. I have been fortunate to be able to have a little bit of a mix in terms of places that I've worked. You go back, obviously, at 2 stops there as an assistant coach in the NHL, in New York and in Nashville, but then also kind of on the other ends of those is, being a head coach in junior hockey in the USHL at the Chicago Steel, which is a development league, and then at the USA Hockey's NTDP, which is one of the most unique places I feel like you can possibly work when it comes to development. And so some really great opportunities to have those experiences over the time, and then college hockey and seeing things at different level. I do think at development, it's sometimes that gets put in that it's just the young players. I think we want to be. I think you always want to be developing. You want to be developing. For every person that's here, whether it's a 20-plus year veteran or it is a player who's coming in for their first year or even their first week. I think everybody here wants to find ways to get better. They want to come in. They want to feel like they're getting better. They're getting information. They're getting the things that they need. I think with veteran players, they definitely know more in terms of what's worked for them in the past, what they've needed. So those conversations become a little bit different than it would be with a younger player. Sure. But I don't think we want to have an environment here where everybody's getting better. Now, how that looks for each person, it might be a little bit different. And so, how what's provided and how it looks and just the setup and even some of the things that, guys are going to be doing on a daily basis that might look different for, an older player that's been in the league for a longer time than it will for that player who's just coming in. And so you have that piece, and then I think it's also just how, how we're working with the players, when they're, whether it's in practice, it's in games, the feedback, the information that's coming back to them, the way that we work with them, and it's, I think a big part of my job here too is, and this is something that, I think that I've really believed in, based on some of those past experiences, those places I've been, is the collaboration that goes on with everybody. Like that's a huge part there, the development, and that's something I've been thrilled with. It's what I think. I had high expectations coming in here based on everything that I had heard, and just based on the conversations that I had there with Kyle and with Jason, and there's a huge level of excitement for me because I believe in collaboration. I believe in we have all these resources, and how do we bring them together? And so there was definitely an expectation and a hope, and I've been thrilled with just how it's all worked so far, and even with our development staff, and you see them, they're on the ice there with us, most days in practice, and they're out there before. And then there's all this that they're doing behind the scenes as well, and really just with I think all departments here, everybody that possibly can help a player individually continue to take steps, continue to grow. The collaboration with them has been fantastic, and I do think that that's a big part of making sure that that development is going in the direction that it needs to.
Well, dovetailing that collaboration and how it's met your expectations, even exceeded your expectations coming into this job, I'm curious how the start for this team has met, exceeded, not met your expectations when you talk about the first quarter poll. And I know as a coach, you're dialed on the next game in front of you, but 21 games down, you're 10-5-6 on the year. as we mentioned, right in the mix, and potentially could propel yourself into and above the mix with the 3 and 4 coming up in front of you here on the schedule. But how did it size up from your first gig as a head coach in the NHL to guide the Pittsburgh Penguins to the first quarter of this season?
Yeah, I think it's obviously the first month. I thought, in terms of record-wise, it was a really, strong start by the group. This month there's been some games that we've liked a lot of. It's just about finding the consistency in it, and it's also some of those games too. It's just finding another way to get that extra goal or that one extra defensive play, and it's been close. The league's close right now. And so obviously, the points haven't been coming in the way that they did, in the first month. But even within that, I think in terms of a lot of those games, I feel like you're seeing that, okay, we're moving in the right direction, and guys have responded, and you've seen in those, like, whether it's not just the next game, the next little bit, like, and so I think you're looking for those things as a coach, like how are we going to be in different situations? How are we going to respond to different situations? When things don't go well, what are we doing next? Sometimes it's even how do we practice the next day? Are we coming into work? Are we going to come in there and feel bad for ourselves? And like the way the guys have come into work every day so far, I think when things have gone well or when things haven't, it's been pretty consistent, and that's what you want to see, because that's how I think we're going to be able to make sure we're taking steps. And so I think we can be more consistent. I think we've had a little bit of a stretch here where we just gotta. We need, and by we, I don't say we, just the player. It's everybody. It's all of us. It's the coaches. It's everybody. We're all in this together. And so, we all have to keep working together to find a way to just a little bit more. A little bit more. Like I said, that one extra play offensively, that one extra play defensively, because there has been, you've seen it. There's been a lot of really close games, sure. And I think that's. Based on the league right now, there's probably a good chance that those are going to continue to be there. And so, that's I really I really like the group that we're working with.
Yeah.
And so it's I think they're the ones by expectations will be defined. They have been defined by them and by nobody else. And so that's a credit to them. They've set high expectations and a high standard in my eyes.
I did want to ask you, though, this gap, you had essentially a 4 or 5 day gap when we got back from Sweden before the back-to-back with Minnie in Seattle, then another 3-day stretch before you face Buffalo. There's a lot of practice time, as we discussed there, but there's also an opportunity where we've seen some injured bodies get back onto the ice to practice with the team, and most notably, Tristan Jarry and Ville Koivunen, both guys on Tuesday looked like they were really involved in practice, and as it appears they ramped up a little bit more. I'm just curious, what you can share as far as where those two are at, and just how nice it was to have the practice time to not just throw these guys back in on the fly, but actually have some legitimate days to work them back in.
Yeah, I think for guys coming back, the timing's really good because you don't always have that. A lot of times what you'll have is one practice, and when you have these days, you look at the schedule that's coming up, and it's you're playing at one point very close to every other day, and so now some of those days you might not be able to practice at all, based on travel, based on whatever the game, based on how we're feeling, based on there's a lot of things that come into play, and so you might be going out for a pregame skate and that's it, or if you are going on the ice, it's not much more than a pregame skate. You're talking about maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes, so it's not a lot that you can be out there as a team. So you got to take advantage of these days. These are, you got to make sure, one, that we're doing things that, are going to be really important for our game. You also need to make sure that the guys are getting what they need in terms of puck touches, in terms of contact, in terms of the things that they need to stay game ready. And so, but there's a lot more that are to those, and now you get players that are coming back, and to be in that type of environment instead of one where you're going out for 15, 20 minutes and it's light and it's just up and down and it's maybe not as game-like as you would have. It's more just for maintenance. I think there's huge benefits for both guys, Ville for sure, and I think for Jars too, just having more of that probably a little bit more game action than you would potentially see in some other types of practices, depending on where the schedule is at.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on both those guys. We mentioned the Sabres, and then it's Columbus, Toronto, fast and furious, and 4 and 6 if you want to stretch it out to next week with the Anaheim Ducks looming next Tuesday. So busy schedule for the Penguins. We'll talk a little bit about that and wind this thing down when you come back. Stay with us.
Inside Penguins Hockey is back
Let's go eat sushi.
for an all-new season.
And now he's your best friend.
Yeah. Getting a line in the water is always a joy for me.
Inside Penguins Hockey. New episodes every month on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by UPMC Health Plan.
Welcome back. Ready to wind this show down, but Coach, first, before we go, busy schedule awaits. Obviously, we got Buffalo on Wednesday night, but then it's Columbus, and then it's Toronto, and then it's Philly, and then that kickstarts a road trip where you're in Tampa, and then Dallas, and some good teams in there, some good tests, but at the bottom line, a busy stretch awaits for you guys. So, what's the message, and how do you guys aim to handle going from, I would say, like a slow movement to like a fast sprint here over the next week with your schedule?
Yeah. Well, I think what you've seen here over the last couple of weeks, just with the Sweden trip, that's not the norm. Like, we're not really used to that. So what we're more used to is, playing on a pretty regular basis there. It's, not every other night. There might be a two-night gap between games, and you're going all the time. And so I think it's just getting back into that. I think it's getting back into that routine. It has been nice having some practice time, but I think guys are also, ready for that to get back in what's a little bit more normal in terms of, you play and you come back and you get ready for the next day, the practice day, and then you're getting ready for the next game, and it turns quick and you're turning the page all the time. And I think once you get into that rhythm too, that there's there can be some benefits to that as well. And so, I think it's just part of the NHL schedule, and I do think that this group they're used to that, and we've seen that for, the start of the year. So it's just getting back to, I think, what we know.
We mentioned that 3 and 4 stretch on Thursday, of course, is Thanksgiving. Generally, for us in the hockey world, it's sandwiched between games. That's the case for your team this year with playing on Black Friday and playing on Thanksgiving Eve. And that Friday game is in Columbus, so some travel, although small, travel involved there. I'm curious if you have any hockey-related Thanksgiving memories to end this one.
Yeah, no, not a lot. I've been on buses. I've been on planes. It's usually been a lot of travel on Thanksgiving. It feels like I haven't, not too many times there at home. I think I can remember having a Thanksgiving dinner though with the family one time before getting on a bus at one of the stops, and it's always busy. I feel like this time of year in hockey, you're usually in between games, and so I think when my kids were much younger and I was coaching in college hockey, I usually had the time off a couple of days, and so you just enjoying time there with family and enjoying the day together, and now it's a lot of times just getting ready for that next game, and usually a little bit of travel.
Yeah, just a bunch of hockey with a holiday in between.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time, Coach.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Appreciate you all tuning in. Good night.